Welcome to the Autism Alliance of Michigan Skill Building Series. Autism Alliance of Michigan is guided by the vision that people with autism will lead lives that meet their greatest potential. The mission of Autism Alliance of Michigan is to lead efforts to raise expectations and expand opportunities for people touched by autism across the lifespan. Hello, my name is Carissa Rondo. I'm a board certified and licensed behavior analyst, as well as a licensed clinical social worker and consultant for Autism Alliance of Michigan. Welcome to our webinar today, focusing on behavior basics. Today we'll build upon part 1 and move into part 2. Now that we know the ABCs of behavior, all your reactions reinforcing maladaptive behavior will be further discussed. This PowerPoint can be printed and used as a template to fill out during the presentation. Once completed, it will serve as a sample behavior plan that you can put into practice. Functions of behavior. During part 1, we talked about the target behavior, common antecedents, and common consequences of that target behavior that you identified. Today, we're going to spend more time diving into the functions of behavior, or why is the behavior occurring? The areas we're going to focus upon are positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, automatic positive reinforcement, and automatic negative reinforcement. In ABA, the definition of reinforcement is a stimulus change that increases the future frequency of the behavior. So those 4 different types of reinforcement that I mentioned, the behaviors that we're looking to decrease are occurring. They continue to occur. Something is reinforcing them. Something is causing that target behavior to continue to occur. There's another type of assessment, if you will, that behavior analysts often complete, and that is assessing a target behavior that we want to see more of versus less of. When we want to see more of something, we aren't at the current moment, so something is punishing it. Something is causing it not to happen at a high enough frequency. That would be referred to as either positive punishment, negative punishment, automatic positive punishment, or automatic negative punishment. For the remainder of this webinar, we're going to focus on the reinforcement. So this topic or these phrases can get a little tricky to understand. So the takeaway point to remember with this is that the target behaviors that we identified in the first webinar really focuses on target behaviors that are happening at too high of a frequency. They're happening at a higher frequency than what we want to see. And the reason for that is something is happening, and we looked at those antecedents and those consequences. Something is happening to cause that behavior to continue to occur. Something is reinforcing it. And that would either be the positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, automatic positive reinforcement, or automatic negative reinforcement. We're going to take a closer look at those now. The functions of behavior. Why is the behavior occurring? As I previously mentioned, we have the positive reinforcement. Something is added to the situation. Frequently, that is attention from another individual or attention from an animal, a loved one, access to tangibles. Tangibles can be anything a person can hold in their hand. And then also sensory input. So if we take that positive reinforcement, we can break it down into 2 additional subtopics, which would be social tangible positive reinforcement and automatic positive reinforcement. Automatic positive reinforcement classifies that sensory input that individuals receive. So their senses, those 5 different senses that we have, that would be sensory input. Any sort of sight, taste, touch, hearing, or smell would go into that sensory input category. Then we have negative reinforcement. Something is taken away. So think of negative, subtract. The individual experiences a delay or escape, or there's an ending of an unpleasant sensation or action. So again, we take that down further and we break it into two subcategories: social tangible negative reinforcement and automatic negative reinforcement. Examples of positive reinforcement. I'm going to give you some here. Be thinking about others. And if you have other ideas of different types of social tangible reinforcement, you can list those on the lines provided. Examples would be access to social attention, edibles or any type of food, toys, preferred areas or activities, and something to keep in mind that social attention can be facial expressions, tickles, verbal interactions, hugs, any sort of social attention that somebody is getting from another living item, object, human being, animal, can be that social attention component. Automatic positive reinforcement, access to something as a result of their own action. No one else is available, around, or present. So brushing your own teeth, oftentimes we've used self-stimulation, so body movements or body posturing. Turning on your iPad, which would be, iPad would be paired with the tangible on the left-hand side there. But being able to access that device on your own would be that independent part of this automatic positive reinforcement category. Other examples are washing your own hands, pressure or sensation from an outfit or garment that you're wearing, listening to music, feeling the wind from a fan, standing in the rain, sitting in the sun. Any of those types of things would be examples of automatic positive reinforcement when you don't need anybody else around you to access those activities. Now we go to examples of negative reinforcement. Again, social tangible negative reinforcement would be a delay or escape. And now these are two separate things. Delaying would be you need to come back to it eventually. Is that delay 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours? Escape would be you don't have to do it at all. It's completely done, completely gone. Delay or escape of activity, a task, an instruction, an environment, a location. Then we have automatic negative reinforcement. This one's a little trickier, but some examples would be that dinging in your car where you're driving down the driveway or on a slower road and the dinging is happening and you know you don't have your seatbelt on, but you put it on anyways because you want the dinging to go away. Automatic negative reinforcement. You're automatically doing it. You're getting rid of that ding, which is that negative part. You're going to continue to engage in that action because you do not like the dinging sound. So you continue to engage in that behavior. It's reinforced. You plug in your electronic when the low battery light is on. You plug it in, the low battery light goes away. You take some medication, your headache goes away. You start scratching your arm because there's a bug bite there and the itch from the bug bite goes away. You pay your bills to avoid late fees. You're basically engaging in an action on your own without the help of others to make an aversive part of the situation go away. So if we look at the examples from our first webinar, part 1, and we take that antecedent, which is mom walked into the room and told Johnny to pick up his toys. The target behavior was Johnny threw a toy at mom. The consequence was mom walked out of the room and Johnny continued to play with his toys. The hypothesized function would be multiply maintained in this example, which is negative reinforcement by way of mom walking out of the room. Mom is leaving. Negative, mom walked away. We're going to continue to throw toys when mom asks us to pick them up because as soon as we throw the toys, mom walks away. And then positive reinforcement by way of continuing to play with the toys. In the next example here, Johnny is independently playing on the floor with his toys and begins to scream. Mom walks over and begins to play with Johnny. The hypothesized function here is positive reinforcement. Mom walks over and begins to play with Johnny. Next time Johnny wants his mom to play with him, he's likely to start screaming because what happened in this situation? Mom walks over and starts playing. Positive reinforcement, he's going to continue to engage in that behavior. Positive because there's something added to the situation. Mom starts playing with him. In the third example, Johnny asks to go outside and play. Mom says no. Johnny asks again, same answer. Johnny proceeds to bang his head on the floor. Mom interrupts Johnny and tells him to go outside to play. Hypothesize function, positive reinforcement, access to outside. Positive because something's added to the situation. He gets to go outside. Reinforcement because he's likely to do this again in the future when he wants to go outside and mom says, no, I'll just start banging my head on the floor. Mom will likely tell me to go outside and play. Two more examples here. Johnny realized his hands had marker on them. He washes his hands. His hands are clean. No more marker marks. Hypothesize function, automatic negative reinforcement. Automatic because Johnny does not need anybody else's participation to engage in this target behavior. Negative because the marker marks went away. And it's reinforcement because likely next time he has marker on his hands, he's going to wash them. The behavior is going to continue to happen. And in our last example here, Johnny is sitting by himself. He puts his thumb in his mouth and is sucking on it. Johnny is smiling and sucking his thumb for the next 20 minutes. Hypothesize function, automatic positive reinforcement. The sensation from sucking his thumb. Automatic because no one else is in the environment. He can engage in this target behavior on his own. Positive because he's receiving sensory input. And reinforcement because the next time he wants to feel that sensation on his thumb or in his mouth, he's very likely to engage in this thumb sucking behavior. So if we look at this next slide here, this is where you can fill in your antecedent, your behavior, and your consequence from the first PowerPoint. And we're going to look at your hypothesize function. Why is this behavior happening? Would you say it's happening because you're adding something to the situation in terms of a consequence, causing the behavior to happen more? Are you taking something away where you're delaying or avoiding or escaping the instruction by way of the consequence? Automatic positive reinforcement on their own, they're adding something to the situation. Or is it automatic negative reinforcement because on their own, they're ending an unpleasant situation? Fill in what area you think. Sometimes, oftentimes, when we first look at antecedents, behaviors, and consequences, there might be situations that are target behaviors that are multiply maintained. As you continue to collect data and information and identify additional antecedents or other consequences that have occurred, you may come up with a more revised hypothesized function that the majority of the time it's one of the types of reinforcement versus many. So the more data you collect, the more antecedents or consequences you have, the better, more honed in hypothesized function you will come up with. So now that we have an idea of why the behavior is occurring, what are you going to do about it? You're not going to be collecting data and information just to sit and look at it and know why it's happening. The point of doing that is to be able to treat it or do something about it so it doesn't happen at such a high frequency. So reinforcement effectiveness, we want to take that reinforcement piece. The reason the individual is engaging in that target behavior is to get something out of the situation, get something out of engaging in that behavior. So we want to reinforce the alternative behavior and reinforce what we want to see so that we see that target behavior occur less frequently. So have you selected a true reinforcer? That's what it's all about. What we believe to be a reinforcer or preferred by somebody may not truly be what motivates them. We need to figure out what are they motivated by and what would they be encouraged by to change their behavior. They're not going to do it for no reason. They're not going to do it just because you told them they need to. So reinforcement effectiveness. Have you selected a true reinforcer? To be able to determine this, reinforcers need to be delivered immediately. So immediacy. The more immediate, the more effective the reinforcer will be. You don't want a long duration between when the target appropriate behavior, the appropriate target behavior occurred, paired with when the reinforcement's delivered. Immediacy needs to happen initially, and over time, you can increase that duration and that delay. But there's a systematic approach with that. So when you're first starting out with reinforcement, you want to make sure you immediately deliver it. Deprivation and satiation. How long has it been since the individual has had that item? If it's not very often, it's probably more reinforcing. If it's something they have all the time, open access to, they can have it whenever they want, why are they going to work for it? It's not going to be very effective. So, for example, if you chose M&Ms or a piece of gum or Skittles or a cup of coffee or a can of Sprite, you want to make sure that they don't have free access to it. They only are able to access those items or that individual item once they earn it by engaging in the target behavior that you're choosing to replace the inappropriate target behavior with. Contingency. You only want to deliver that reinforcer for that appropriate target behavior, similar to what I talked about with the deprivation. Size and intensity, is it worth it? So if an individual was engaging in a new action, very difficult, very hard, are you going to reward them and reinforce them with one M&M, or are you going to give them a handful? If it's an activity that they are not familiar with, very difficult for them, are you going to give them that whole stick of gum or that whole can of pop? Or are they just going to get a little bit of it? It has to be worth it for the person. But then we also go back to the satiation. So if they engage in activity, you give them a whole can of pop, they're not going to do that activity again right away. They just have their whole can of pop. So you definitely need to take all these different variables into consideration when you're looking at what you're going to be using for reinforcement. Preference assessment. Sometimes you might think, oh, they like everything the same, or I really have no idea what this individual might like. This is a way to really see, what are they going to work towards or look forward to. I always like to say look forward to, because everybody in their life looks forward to things. Oftentimes, individuals that are not on the spectrum look forward to doing something on the weekend, look forward to doing something after work. We need to teach our individuals that we're teaching these skills to look forward to things. Life is full of a ton of different things to look forward to, but only when we go through the day, and there's going to be challenges, there's going to be stressors, there's going to be things that are difficult for us, and we want to look forward to something more reinforcing or more enjoyable for us. So if we always term it, what are you working for? It shows them that what they're doing is always work, and it's never going to come easy to them. So my personal preference is I like to talk about it in terms of what are we looking forward to today. Think about these things in terms of social interactions with others. What are their favorites? Edibles, food and drink, what are their favorites? Tangible items and different activities. These are some examples here on the chart. There's room in the boxes for you to write your own, or use a different color pen. If you printed this presentation in black and white, use a blue pen. And then that way you can see what some of your examples are that are listed. Online, you Google preference assessment. There are many, many, many different ideas that pop up that will give you different examples of things individuals can look forward to of all ages, whether that be young children, adolescents, or even adults. So what is your individual, your child, interested in? That's what we want to know for this preference assessment. So now we go back to one of our examples here. Johnny is independently playing on the floor with his toys and he begins to scream. Mom walks over and begins to play with Johnny. Positive reinforcement is what we're hypothesizing this behavior to be maintained by. Mom walking over and beginning to play with Johnny. So now that we have that information, we know several things. We know the target behavior, which is screaming. We know the antecedent, which is independently playing. We know the consequence, which is mom walking over and beginning to play with him. The hypothesized function is positive reinforcement. And a possible reinforcer, just by looking at this example, is mom's attention. The screaming stopped as soon as mom walked over and started to play with him. So mom's attention is likely a reinforcer for Johnny. So what we're going to do with that is develop a plan. The plan would be we want to decrease Johnny's screaming behavior. So how are we going to do that? With this example, an example plan could be when Johnny is playing by himself and is demonstrating calm, appropriate behavior, mom will join Johnny and play. When Johnny is screaming, mom will ignore Johnny until he is calm for 5 seconds, then join and play. As Johnny is more successful for longer duration, mom will wait longer to join and play after screaming is demonstrated. So for this plan or this example, we're going to take what was maintaining the inappropriate behavior and present that exact same thing to Johnny when he's demonstrating and presenting appropriate behaviors and playing appropriately. Instead of waiting for Johnny to start screaming for mom to come over, we're going to catch him when he's engaging in that behavior appropriately and walk over and reinforce that and start playing with him. When he starts screaming, mom is going to turn away and pause her play to teach Johnny that when he starts screaming, play is going to stop with mom, but she's more than happy to engage and play with him when he's acting, when his vocal behaviors are appropriate. So for your example, you're going to write down your antecedent, your behavior, and your consequence. What are your possible reinforcers? What does the individual enjoy? And don't hesitate to think about what is the individual getting out of their inappropriate behavior. That could very well be a very positive reinforcer for the individual. And then we're going to write a modified plan here really quick. So your plan strategies, when the individual is, what is that appropriate behavior that you're looking for? He or she will have access or be able to engage in, what is that reinforcer? And then when the individual is blank, engaging in that target problem behavior, the response of the parent or caregiver is going to be what? And that's going to be dependent upon what's maintaining the behavior. So it's likely going to be the direct opposite. So in summary, we want to know what behavior we're trying to decrease, what's maintaining that behavior by determining your antecedents and your consequences, what motivates and reinforces your individual, and how will you manipulate your interactions and reactions to support change. Those are those environmental variables that we need to manipulate to support that behavior change. So I hope this was helpful for you. Assessments take a lot more than just kind of looking at the basics. So if you're really stumped, the target behavior you're looking at, you're really having a difficult time identifying antecedents and consequences, reaching out to behavior analysts in your support team. Autism Alliance of Michigan has wonderful resources for you to access. You can reach out and get some additional assistance with this. This was intended to be an overview and to provide you with some basic information in terms of what maintains behaviors, what are the basics of behavior, and how can we go about manipulating some variables within the environment to see low intensity, low frequency target behavior decrease and look and see more of the positive behaviors increase in the individual's life. So some resources that the Autism Alliance of Michigan provides. For additional information, questions, and resources, please contact them. Please contact the Autism Alliance of Michigan. They are prepared and at no cost to counsel, advocate, and connect families to evidence-based care and support, however long it takes. Our navigation program will connect anyone touched by autism to a free, lifelong guide with professional help and answers. Thank you so very much for attending our webinar today.